Eleanor and Benjamin Harrison lived in a weathered Victorian farmhouse nestled among ancient maple trees and wildflower meadows. As the morning sun painted the kitchen in golden hues, Eleanor, her silver hair tied in a loose braid, poured coffee into Benjamin's favorite earthenware mug. "Happy anniversary, my love," Benjamin said, his eyes crinkling with warmth as he slid a small wooden box across the worn oak table. 50 years together, and his gaze still held the same devotion it had on their wedding day. Eleanor's fingers trembled slightly as she opened the box, revealing an intricately carved wooden pendant featuring intertwined butterfly wings. "Did you craft this?" she whispered, touching the delicate workmanship. "Been working on it in my workshop for months," he admitted. "Thought it might complement your Sunday cardigan." As Eleanor pinned the pendant to her sweater, her eyes glistened. "It's absolutely perfect." Despite their immense wealth, the Harrisons lived with remarkable simplicity. Their fortunes stemmed from Benjamin's revolutionary water purification technology, which Eleanor's brilliant business acumen had transformed into Harrison Environmental Solutions, now a multinational corporation. "Our grandson Michael's graduation is next weekend," Eleanor mentioned, cradling her coffee. "Can you believe he's 18 already?" Benjamin nodded thoughtfully. "Our first grandchild finishing high school. Time certainly flies. What shall we give him?" "I've been contemplating that," Benjamin said, reaching into his pocket to retrieve an antique gold pocket watch. He's always admired my father's timepiece. The watch gleamed dully, its chain worn from decades of handling. "This old thing barely keeps accurate time anymore," Benjamin murmured. "What if we had it restored?" Eleanor suggested. "Perhaps add a special engraving for his graduation." Benjamin's face brightened. Something he could treasure and pass down to his own children someday. They spent the morning discussing possibilities. Michael was heading to university to study environmental engineering, following his grandfather's path. He'd grown up working alongside Benjamin in the workshop, learning to create with his hands. "There's that elegant jeweler downtown," Benjamin suggested. "What's it called?" "Prestige and Gold," Eleanor corrected with a smile. "They specialize in custom work. I saw their advertisement in the newspaper." "We could visit today," Eleanor added. "I need to deliver that donation check to the Children's Hospital anyway." They rarely drove their luxury vehicles. Benjamin preferred his weathered pickup truck, while Eleanor drove a modest hybrid sedan. Their home, though comfortable, wasn't a mansion. They'd never seen the point of ostentation. After breakfast, Eleanor changed into her favorite outfit, a simple periwinkle cardigan over a cotton dress, items she'd owned for years. Benjamin wore his usual attire, sturdy canvas pants, a flannel shirt, and his trusty leather jacket with a well-worn cap. "Should we dress more formally?" Eleanor asked, glancing at her husband's casual attire. Benjamin shrugged. "Why would we? We're just discussing a watch restoration." "You're right," Eleanor agreed, slipping on her wedding band, her only piece of jewelry. No need for pretense. Nothing about their appearance suggested they could purchase the entire shopping district without hesitation. Benjamin's calloused hands and sun-weathered face spoke of hard work, not luxury. Eleanor's simple hairstyle and minimal makeup belonged to a woman who valued practicality over appearance. As they drove downtown in Benjamin's truck, they chatted about Michael's upcoming graduation party, the new herb garden Eleanor planned to plant, and Benjamin's latest woodworking project. Neither gave a second thought to their appearance as they parked and approached Prestige and Gold. They'd never concerned themselves with others' opinions. Their lifestyle choices weren't about concealing their wealth. They simply preferred authenticity. Little did they know their humble appearance would trigger a series of events that would leave the staff of Prestige and Gold regretting the day they judged a book by its cover. A cathedral of luxury Prestige and Gold gleamed like a modern-day palace. Crystal chandeliers scattered rainbows across polished granite floors, while glass cases displayed jewelry that cost more than most people's homes. The air itself seemed expensive, perfumed with exclusivity. As Eleanor and Benjamin pushed open the heavy brass doors, a security guard in an impeccably tailored suit gave them a thorough once-over, his expression shifting from vigilant to dismissive. The message was clear. People like them didn't belong here. "May I assist you?" he asked, subtly positioning himself between them and the display cases. "We're here about a custom piece," Eleanor explained cautiously. The guard hesitated, then gestured toward the reception desk. "Please check in over there." At the polished mahogany counter, a young woman with flawless makeup glanced up, a professional smile freezing when she saw them. Her eyes darted to her colleague, a silent message passing between them. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked, her voice cooling noticeably. "No, we don't," Eleanor replied. "We're interested in having an antique watch restored and customized." The receptionist's perfectly manicured fingers danced across her keyboard. "I see. Well, our master craftsmen are quite busy. The wait for custom work is considerable." "We're not in a hurry," Benjamin said amiably. "It's for our grandson's graduation next weekend, but even if it takes longer, that's fine." Her eyebrows arched slightly. "Custom pieces typically start at $25,000. Benjamin nodded calmly. "That's fine." The receptionist seemed taken aback by his casual response, but recovered quickly. "One moment, please." She retreated to a back office, whispering urgently to someone inside. Eleanor and Benjamin stood patiently, observing the other customers. A woman in a designer ensemble was trying on a diamond necklace. A man in an Italian suit examined cufflinks through a jeweler's loupe. Everyone looked like they'd stepped out of a luxury magazine. Everyone except them. "They think we can't afford anything here," Eleanor whispered, her eyes twinkling with amusement. Benjamin squeezed her hand. "Let them think what they want." The receptionist returned with a distinguished-looking man in an impeccably tailored suit. His name tag read, Gregory Pemberton, General Manager. "Good afternoon," Gregory said, his eyes making the same dismissive assessment others had. "I understand you're interested in our custom services." "Yes," Eleanor replied. "We'd like to restore this pocket watch and perhaps add a special touch for our grandson." Benjamin retrieved the antique timepiece, placing it carefully on the counter. Gregory barely glanced at it. "I see. And what sort of budget did you have in mind for this project?" Eleanor and Benjamin exchanged knowing looks. "We hadn't set a specific limit," Eleanor answered. "Whatever it takes to make it special." Gregory's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Our artisans are among the finest in the world. Their work commands appropriate compensation." "We understand," Benjamin said. "Perhaps," Gregory suggested, his tone condescending, "you might be more comfortable at Timikipa's on Madison Avenue. They offer more economical options." Eleanor's posture straightened imperceptibly. "We're here because we understand you're the best." Gregory's smile tightened. "Indeed we are, which is why our clientele typically comes prepared for significant investment." By now, several customers had taken notice of the exchange. A woman adorned in diamonds whispered to her companion. Two salespeople watched from behind their counters, barely concealing their smirks. "Perhaps you could show us some examples of your restoration work," Eleanor suggested, refusing to be intimidated. Gregory sighed audibly. "Victoria," he called to a nearby associate, "would you show these folks our vintage collection, the entry-level pieces?" Victoria approached reluctantly, leading them to a small display case tucked in a corner. "These are our more accessible items," she explained, emphasizing the word accessible as if it were synonymous with inferior. Even the entry-level watches carried six-figure price tags. Benjamin examined them carefully, asking intelligent questions about mechanisms and craftsmanship that Victoria struggled to answer. "Do you have anything with custom gemstone work?" Eleanor inquired. "Those pieces are in our premium collection," Victoria replied stiffly. Could we see them? Victoria glanced toward Gregory, who gave an almost imperceptible shake of his head. I'm afraid those are shown by appointment only to qualified buyers. Qualified buyers? Benjamin repeated. Yes, Victoria said, lowering her voice conspiratorially. We need to ensure serious interest before presenting our most exclusive pieces. Eleanor's eyes narrowed slightly. And how do you determine who's a serious buyer? Victoria fumbled for words. Well, typically our premium clients are. That is, they're usually. She trailed off, uncomfortable with articulating the store's unspoken policy of judging customers by their appearance and perceived status. The tension was interrupted by a crash as a young sales associate dropped a tray of cleaning supplies nearby. All eyes turned briefly to the commotion, but Eleanor noticed Gregory making a subtle, wrap-it-up gesture to Victoria. The message was clear: get rid of them. The art of dismissal. Gregory Pemberton had dealt with window shoppers before, people who wandered in with neither intention nor ability to purchase anything substantial. In his 25 years at Prestige and Gold, he developed an almost supernatural ability to identify who belonged and who didn't. And these two definitely didn't belong. He approached Eleanor and Benjamin with practiced authority. I believe there's been a misunderstanding, he said smoothly. Our restoration services require a substantial deposit, $10,000, non-refundable, just to begin the assessment. Benjamin raised an eyebrow. That seems excessive for an assessment. Quality assurance, Gregory replied with a dismissive wave. It prevents our artisans from wasting time on speculative projects. Eleanor's expression remained pleasant, but her eyes had cooled. I see. And is this policy posted somewhere? I did recall seeing it mentioned. Gregory's smile became more strained. It's standard practice for our level of clientele. By now, a small crowd had gathered to watch the interaction. Other customers, security personnel, and several staff members. The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, catching on diamonds and crystal, creating an almost theatrical spotlight on the unfolding drama. Perhaps, Gregory continued, raising his voice slightly to ensure others could hear, you'd be more comfortable somewhere that aligns better with your means. A ripple of laughter came from a well-dressed couple nearby. The woman whispered something to her companion, who smirked in response. Eleanor stood perfectly still, her dignity intact despite the public humiliation. Benjamin's weathered hand found hers, giving it a gentle squeeze. We're simply looking to have a family heirloom restored, Benjamin said calmly. If you're not interested in our business. It's not a question of interest, Gregory interrupted, his voice dripping with condescension. It's a question of suitability. Prestige and Gold has a reputation to maintain. Our pieces are investments, not. He glanced pointedly at Eleanor's wooden pendant, craft fair trinkets. The insult hung in the air. A female employee behind the counter didn't even try to hide her smirk. The security guard moved closer, anticipating the need to escort them out. Now see here, Benjamin began, his voice rising slightly. Gregory raised a hand. Please, sir, there's no need for a scene. He turned to the security guard. Marcus, please show these people out. You're asking us to leave. Eleanor asked, her voice steady despite the public humiliation. I'm suggesting that everyone's time would be better served if you explored options more appropriate to your situation. Gregory's eyes flicked to Benjamin's worn canvas pants, then to Eleanor's simple cardigan. We cater to a certain clientele. The security guard stepped forward. Sir, ma'am, if you'll come with me. Eleanor stood her ground. This is discrimination. This is a private business, Gregory countered. And I have every right to refuse service. Whispers rippled through the gathered crowd. Someone coughed awkwardly. A woman in designer clothes pretended to examine a bracelet, but kept her eyes fixed on the unfolding drama. I'd like to speak with the owner, Eleanor said firmly. Gregory laughed. The owner, Mr. Blackwell, wouldn't waste his time on this matter. Now please leave before I'm forced to call the authorities. The velvet rope that separated the store entrance from the main showroom suddenly seemed like a barrier between two worlds. The world of luxury and privilege, and the world of ordinary people who didn't belong. "Come on, Eleanor," Benjamin said softly. "We'll go somewhere else." The security guard moved to escort them, but Gregory stepped forward instead, clearly enjoying his moment of power. "Allow me," he said, gesturing toward the door with exaggerated courtesy. As they walked through the showroom toward the exit, Eleanor and Benjamin felt the weight of every stare, heard every whispered comment. Gregory walked behind them, a triumphant smile playing at his lips. At the door, he couldn't resist one final jab. "Perhaps try the mall," he suggested loudly. "I believe they're having a sale on costume jewelry this weekend." More laughter followed. A young saleswoman with blonde highlights actually covered her mouth to stifle a giggle. Eleanor paused at the threshold, turning to face Gregory. Her expression wasn't angry. It was almost pitying. "You've made quite a mistake today," she said simply. Gregory smirked. "The only mistake was assuming you could afford our services. Good day." The glass door swung shut behind them, leaving Eleanor and Benjamin standing on the sidewalk, the afternoon sun warm on their faces. Benjamin's arm went around Eleanor's shoulders. "I'm sorry, dear," he said. "We should have gone somewhere else." Eleanor's eyes held a strange gleam, not tears, but something closer to determination. "No," she replied, reaching into her purse. "I think we're exactly where we need to be." She pulled out her phone and pressed a single button. The turning of tables. Eleanor's phone call was brief but decisive. "Richard, it's Eleanor Harrison. Yes, at Prestige and Gold. Could you come by and bring Thomas with the paperwork?" She ended the call and turned to Benjamin with a small smile. 10 minutes. Benjamin chuckled and shook his head. "Are you sure about this? 50 years together, and you still ask me that?" Eleanor's eyes twinkled. "Let's go sit on that bench. I want to see their faces." Inside the store, business had resumed. Gregory was regaling several employees with an embellished version of what had just transpired, mimicking Benjamin's posture and Eleanor's voice to appreciative laughter. And then she asked to speak to the owner. Gregory chortled. As if Alexander Blackwell would waste his time on people who probably can't even afford the polish we use. Victoria, the young associate, laughed along but glanced uncomfortably toward the door. Should we really have thrown them out like that? Gregory dismissed her concern with a wave. "Trust me, I've been doing this for 25 years. You can spot time wasters a mile away. Those two probably saved for months just to walk in here." Outside, a sleek silver Mercedes pulled up to the curb. A uniformed driver opened the door for a distinguished man in his 60s wearing an impeccable suit. He was followed by a younger man carrying a leather portfolio. Together, they approached Eleanor and Benjamin on the bench. "Mrs. Harrison," the older man said with a slight bow. "Mr. Harrison, what can we do for you today?" Eleanor stood, straightening her simple periwinkle cardigan. "Richard, thank you for coming so quickly. We've encountered a situation." Inside, the store had fallen silent. Through the glass frontage, everyone could see the Mercedes, the driver, and the distinguished visitors now conversing with the couple they just humiliated. "Who are they talking to?" Victoria whispered, peering through the window. Gregory squinted. "That's Richard Sterling. He's one of the top financial advisors in the country." His confident demeanor faltered slightly. What would he be doing with them? The younger man in the group outside opened his portfolio, presenting papers for Eleanor to review. She nodded, signed something, and handed them to Benjamin, who added his signature. "What's happening?" a customer asked, all pretense of shopping abandoned as everyone watched the scene unfold. Gregory's face had lost some of its color. "I'm not sure." Outside, Eleanor was speaking animatedly, gesturing toward the jewelry store. Richard Sterling nodded gravely while the younger man took notes. Then, to everyone's shock, another vehicle pulled up. This one a midnight blue Bentley with tinted windows. "That's Alexander Blackwell's car," Gregory whispered, recognition dawning. The owner, indeed, Alexander Blackwell, founder and CEO of the prestige and gold chain, emerged from the back seat. In his 70s, immaculately dressed, he spotted the group and broke into a wide smile. "Eleanor, Benjamin," he called, approaching with arms outstretched. What a delightful surprise! The blood drained from Gregory's face as he watched his employer embrace the couple he'd just thrown out of the store. Inside, the atmosphere had shifted from amusement to alarm. Employees exchanged worried glances. Customers whispered behind their hands. Gregory tugged at his collar, suddenly finding it too tight. "Who are those people?" Victoria demanded, her voice tight with anxiety. Before Gregory could answer, Eleanor, Benjamin, Richard Sterling, the young assistant, and Alexander Blackwell all turned toward the store. Eleanor pointed directly at Gregory through the window, and Alexander Blackwell's expression darkened visibly. The group began walking toward the entrance. "I think," Gregory said, his voice barely audible, "we've made a terrible mistake." The security guard moved to open the door, his earlier disdain replaced with deference. As the door swung open, Gregory found himself face to face with the couple he humiliated, and his boss, who looked angrier than he'd ever seen him. "Gregory," Alexander Blackwell said, his voice dangerously quiet, "we need to talk." The revelation, the atmosphere in prestige and gold had transformed completely. Where there had been smirks and whispers, now there was only stunned silence. Every eye was fixed on the unfolding scene. "Alexander," Eleanor said pleasantly, "we didn't expect to see you today." Alexander Blackwell's expression was a mix of delight toward the Harrisons and barely contained fury toward his staff. "When Richard called to say you were here, I couldn't believe it. And then he told me what happened." He turned to Gregory, whose face had gone from pale to ashen. "Mr. Pemberton, do you have any idea who you just threw out of my store?" Gregory swallowed hard. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding." "Indeed there has," Alexander agreed, his voice ice cold. "You've just insulted Eleanor and Benjamin Harrison." The name dropped like a bomb in the silent showroom. Victoria gasped audibly. A customer's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. "Harrison," Gregory repeated weakly, "as in Harrison Environmental Solutions." The company currently valued at approximately $112 billion. Richard Sterling confirmed, adjusting his glasses. Murmurs rippled through the store. Harrison Environmental Solutions was a household name. Their water purification systems were in millions of homes, hospitals, and businesses worldwide. Their humanitarian work had been featured in countless news stories. But Gregory stammered, looking frantically between the elderly couple and his boss. "They don't look like billionaires." "And how exactly should billionaires look, Mr. Pemberton?" Eleanor finished for him, her voice gentle but firm. Gregory had no answer. Benjamin, who had remained quiet until now, spoke up. "We came in to have my grandfather's watch restored for our grandson." He pulled out the antique timepiece again. "It's not worth much in dollars, but it means the world to our family." Alexander Harrington took the watch, examining it with reverence. "It would be our honor to restore this for you, Benjamin. No charge, of course." "We'll pay full price," Eleanor insisted. "We don't want special treatment." Alexander smiled sadly. "From what I understand, special treatment is precisely what you received today, just not the kind anyone should want." The young man with the portfolio stepped forward. "Mrs. Harrison, the papers you signed." "Ah, yes," Eleanor nodded. "Alexander, we've just finalized the donation for the Children's Hospital wing. $75 million, as discussed." Gregory looked like he might faint. "How wonderful!" Alexander exclaimed. The Blackwell Harrison Pediatric Center will help so many families. That was today's errand before we stopped here, Eleanor explained. We thought we'd make a day of it and take care of Michael's graduation gift too. The revelation hit everyone like a thunderbolt. This unassuming couple had just casually donated $75 million before stopping to shop for their grandson. I think, Alexander said, turning to Gregory with steel in his voice, you owe Mr. and Mrs. Harrison an apology. Gregory's professional composure had completely crumbled. I don't know what to say. I am deeply, terribly sorry for how you were treated. I made inexcusable assumptions. Not just about us, Eleanor replied. Your attitude suggests you judge all your customers by their appearance. That's no way to treat anyone, regardless of their bank account. Victoria stepped forward, her eyes downcast. I'm sorry too. I was rude and dismissive. Eleanor nodded, accepting the apologies with grace. We all make mistakes. What matters is learning from them. Alexander addressed the entire staff, who had gathered in a semicircle. Today should serve as a powerful lesson. This company was built on respect for every person who walks through that door. He glanced at Gregory. Some personnel changes will be made effective immediately. He turned back to Eleanor and Benjamin. Now about that watch. I'd like our master jeweler to take a look. And perhaps you'd like to see some options for Michael's graduation. Eleanor smiled. That would be lovely, Alexander. As the Chasson staff scrambled to provide the best service they'd ever given, Benjamin leaned close to his wife and whispered, Was all this really necessary? Eleanor patted his hand. Not for us, dear, but maybe for the next couple who walks in wearing overalls instead of designer labels. The lesson learned as the master jeweler carefully examined Benjamin's pocket watch. The entire atmosphere of prestige and gold had shifted. The staff moved with a newfound humility, their earlier arrogance replaced by genuine attentiveness, not just toward the Harrisons, but toward every customer in the store. Gregory Pemberton stood to the side, his face a mask of regret as he watched Alexander Blackwell personally attend to the couple he had so callously dismissed. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. The man who had wielded his position like a weapon was now witnessing true power, the kind that comes from character, not status. This is exquisite craftsmanship, the master jeweler declared, examining the watch through his loupe. Late 19th century, Swiss movement. With proper restoration, it will keep perfect time for another century. And the engraving? Eleanor asked. We can add a beautiful inscription on the inner cover, the jeweler suggested. Perhaps something about legacy and the passage of time. Benjamin nodded thoughtfully. Michael has always said he wants to make a difference in the world, like his grandfather. How about time measures moments, but legacy measures impact? Eleanor suggested. The jeweler's eyes lit up. Perfect. And might I suggest inlaying a small sapphire, Michael's birthstone, into the crown? As they discussed the details, Alexander Blackwell pulled Gregory aside. 25 years, he said quietly. 25 years you've worked here, and you still haven't learned the most basic principle of this business. Gregory hung his head. Sir, true wealth, Alexander continued, isn't measured by what people wear or drive. It's measured by how they treat others. The Harrisons could buy this entire chain without blinking, yet they've never once used their wealth to diminish another human being. I understand, sir. My resignation will be on your desk. Alexander held up a hand. No. Eleanor was right. This is a learning opportunity. You'll spend the next month working in our community outreach program, helping those less fortunate. Maybe then you'll understand what true value looks like. Meanwhile, Victoria approached Eleanor hesitantly. Mrs. Harrison, may I ask you something? Eleanor turned to the young woman with a kind smile. Of course, dear. How do you, with everything you have, how do you stay so normal? Eleanor laughed softly. Normal? My dear, there's nothing more normal than treating people with kindness. Wealth doesn't change who you are. It only amplifies what's already there. But don't you ever want to show it off? Show what off? Benjamin interjected gently. Money, things. Those aren't achievements, Victoria. They're responsibilities. The real achievement is using what you have to make the world a bit better. As the afternoon wore on, word of what had happened spread throughout the shopping district. Other store owners and employees came to catch a glimpse of the humble billionaires who had taught Prestige and Gold a lesson in humanity. By the time Eleanor and Benjamin left, with the watch promised for restoration and a beautiful sapphire selected for the inlay, the entire dynamic of the store had changed. Gregory held the door open for them himself, his bow genuine rather than mocking. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for the lesson." Eleanor patted his arm. "Remember it. Teach it to others." As they walked to their truck, Benjamin wrapped his arm around Eleanor's shoulders. "You know," he mused, "we could have just gone somewhere else." "We could have," Eleanor agreed. "But sometimes the most important lessons come from the most unexpected moments. Think they'll really change." Eleanor glanced back at the store, where Alexander Blackwell was already gathering his staff for what appeared to be a serious discussion. "Some will, others won't. But at least they'll think twice before judging the next person who walks through those doors." 3 weeks later, at Michael's graduation party, Benjamin presented the restored watch to his grandson. The antique timepiece gleamed like new, its movement precise, the sapphire in its crown catching the light. Inside, the engraving read, "Time measures moments, but legacy measures impact. Love, Grandma and Grandpa." Michael's eyes filled with tears as he hugged his grandparents. "It's perfect," he whispered. "Just remember," Benjamin said, "its true value isn't in the gold or the sapphire. It's in what it represents: family, integrity, and the understanding that how we treat others is the only wealth that really matters." Across town, at Prestige and Gold, a new sign had been installed near the entrance. It read, "We serve all customers with equal respect and dignity." Gregory Pemberton, returning from his month of community service, was the first to polish it each morning. And Victoria, now promoted to senior sales associate, had started a training program for new employees. The first lesson: never judge a customer by their appearance. You never know who might change your life. The story of Eleanor and Benjamin Harrison became something of a legend in the retail world. A reminder that true class isn't worn on the outside, but carried within. And sometimes, the greatest lessons in life come from the most humble teachers. Sometimes, the wealthiest people aren't those flaunting their status. True character shows in how we treat others, regardless of appearance or social standing. If today's story resonated with you, remember, kindness and respect cost nothing, but their absence can cost everything. Join us tomorrow for another story that might just change how you see the world.